How are you doing?
Brilliantly and terribly.
Why do you do what you do?
To see what will happen. Some programs you cannot predict, right? You cannot predict how they're going to end. You have to run them. Well, I believe that truth will save the world. I believe that. So you speak truthfully and you watch what happens and you take your consequences, and maybe you hope and have some faith that in the final analysis, things will work out in your favor, but perhaps they will and perhaps they won't. But that's faith, eh? That's faith. Faith isn't believing in things you regard as ridiculous, sacrificing your intellect. It's a decision. Will truth, beauty, and love save the world? Well, you can find out.
One of the things that I have watched quite frequently is the way that people respond to being mobbed on Twitter. There were days upon days where there were reporters lined up coming into the house one after the other. And that really hasn't stopped.
Now, when I go, wherever I go in the world, people come up to me and they're usually, I wouldn't say they're happy to see me. I believe that truth will save the world. I believe that.
Jordon was ringing the alarm for this a long time ago, and I'm sure you're aware of what's happening to him now.
I am aware that something new is happening to him in the last couple of days, but I have not caught up to it.
He's getting in trouble. This is the most important part about it, is that Jordon has achieved escape velocity. And he doesn't need them anymore. And so this is an empty threat. So this removing his license, you're not going to take away his education, his degrees. If you say you're removing his license, well, I don't think he's seeing clients anymore. He's not really acting as a clinical psychologist anymore, is he?
The College of Psychologists of Ontario, a governing body for psychological practitioners, has as its mandate to protect the public interest by monitoring and regulating the practice of psychology and to govern political speech too, it seems. Jordon B. Peterson, a member of the CPO, was sent a disciplinary letter requiring him to review, reflect on, and ameliorate professionalism in public statements by completing a re-education program. Peterson wrote on Twitter formally indicating his refusal to comply, which he has done by filing an application for judicial review with the Ontario Divisional Court. This is not the first time Peterson has run into demands made on how he uses his speech. In 2016, he launched to fame after he refused to comply with Canadian compelled speech codes as they related to transgenderism.
Even in the revelation of their triumph, the initial depth of their despair. So I wouldn't change that. But it's not nothing. And it's certainly not just happiness. People come up to me and they're often in tears, and they often have a pretty rough story to relate. They were suicidal or nihilistic or homicidal or trapped, desperate, and they tell me that real fast. And then they say, I've overcome that to a large degree and thank you for that. And you think, well, that's really something to have that happen over and over. In some ways, you might think, well, how could anything better possibly happen to you than to have people come up to you all over the world, strangers, and open themselves up like that, like they're old friends so quickly. But at the same time, it's an awful thing because you see it's better than happiness, but it's almost unbearable.
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive, Peterson replied. This time, Peterson is under fire for comments he made on the Joe Rogan podcast about transgenderism being a social contagion, and on Twitter when he referred to Elliot Page by her birth name. Ellen Page said she'd had her breasts removed by a criminal physician. Peterson has also challenged Justin Trudeau's leadership and the fat positivity movement, which he deems to be founded in unreality, rather than say he is being disciplined for saying things they dislike, as is the case.
The legacy media types they're done. They're so done. It's happened so fast. The legacy media, the big magazines, the newspapers, the TV stations, the radio stations for that matter, all of whom had a monopoly on this kind of information flow, are so dead to people under 30 that it's as if their death isn't even noticed. And that's fascinating. And I've also been trying to figure out what I'm doing with the podcasts themselves, because that's really what I've been doing a lot of for the last 4 months. But now you can sit down with someone and you can risk exploration. Of course, that's what Joe Rogan has been doing so well for so many years. You can risk exploration. You can have two people having a genuine discussion about a complex issue. And so they're engaging in dialectical thinking. And if they're good at it, they're modeling it. So they can model high quality dialectical thinking and pull people along on an exploratory journey and make it permanent. And that's completely revolutionary. That's never been possible before. And I listened to this. I was interviewed by a Wall Street journalist last week. And I asked him what he liked about podcasts, because he listened to them a lot. And he said, I really like to see where they're going. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly it. Because in a legacy media interview, everything is scripted and you're never talking to a person. You're talking to the corporation, essentially. And I'm not being cynical about that. It had to be that way because bandwidth was so expensive. But now,
the CPO told Peterson that they felt his comments may cause harm and had a significant impact risk. Peterson requested substantiation. Who exactly was harmed, how, when, to what degree, and how was that harm measured? Of course, there is yet no evidence Peterson has ever caused harm to a patient, nor ever would.
Really fun when it works, and it's working much of the time when I'm talking to my guests. It's really exciting. I have all sorts of people lined up. I'm so excited about it. I think that if in 2 hours you reveal your hand and everyone can see it, you reveal the weaknesses and strengths of your argument. You reveal the weaknesses and strengths of your character. But in some sense, you can, even if your character is flawed, like all of our characters are, if you're engaged in something genuine, in a genuine move forward, you're forgiven for that. Directly to the people who they're responsible to, with no intermediation of bureaucracy, if they dare. But if you're bargaining in good faith, the audience will forgive you for your mistakes. So, but you're punished brutally if you're false. So, and I don't know about you, but I'm really attentive to the comments. I watch how people are responding. And, if 10 people point out something, I'm still working on this proclivity to interrupt. But if 10 people point out something, I try to address it. My team tries to address it because, well, why not? You're probably doing something wrong at some point. If enough people tell you, it's tricky.